Thank you for the honour of being chosen today to tell my story on the theme of voice, treaty and truth. I was born here in Atherton. I'm the youngest of 3 siblings to Brian and Grace Anning, and granddaughter to Jerry and Maggie Anning. Today I represent the Nudgin people on my grandmother's side, who we know as the Rainforest people. They walked from Bartle Frere to Purcell's Crossing, across to Naidoc, known today as Hasties Swamp, to Mount Baldy, Atherton and Tolga. These areas provided protection, food and a strong cultural traditions. They had beliefs and a bond that was an unspoken law. When she shares her stories, where she had to overcome many difficulties growing up under tribal conditions, sometimes was hard to listen to, but I have total admiration for her strength and determination to live. Then the early pioneers arrived. This caused great disruption to the traditional ways of life. They were removed from their traditional lands, placed in either reservations or church missions, or sometimes eradicated altogether. My grandmother had worked for the local settlers' families. She quickly learned how to survive and adapt to European ways. Because it wasn't tolerated to speak her language in public, it was only done in secrecy. We really never knew how old she was when she passed. We estimated she was well over 100 years old. Her life story continues through my father, uncles and aunties. To live through those times and to endure unspeakable hardships shows to me that inner willpower that cannot be taught. Now my story begins. At the age of 3 months, my parents moved our family overseas to Hamilton in New Zealand. While my older brothers attended school, my father worked as a linesman with a local electricity company, and my mother and I enjoyed each other's company at home. To this day, I cannot fathom how hard it would have been for my parents to uproot an Indigenous family to a foreign country to live. Shows me they had pride and confidence to achieve the unthinkable. We were there for about 3 years before we made our journey back home to familiar surroundings, which I believe pleased my mother the most. I attended Atherton State School. I was also a member of the Atherton Amateur Swimming Club. I've been competitive swimming since the age of 5 and was doing really well. I guess my parents saw a talent in my swimming, so at the age of 12 I was moved to Townsville to be billeted out with a well-known swimming coach named Ken Wood. I became Queensland champion at the age of 12 to 15 in 100 and 200 butterfly. I represented Queensland age championships and represented Australia in the SGIO games in Brisbane. The training and competition helped draw out the determination and discipline that was needed to be successful at such a young age. I believe that part of me was my grandmother in me. I completed my schooling to the year 12 and I was ready to begin my next journey as a young adult. I had no idea what I wanted to do or what I wanted to be. But I knew one thing for sure was that I wanted to be someone and I never wanted to fail. My parents were always hard workers. They were never without employment. My father left school at the age of 9 to go to work and earn money for grandma and granddad. There were 9 siblings to feed and granddad's wage wasn't enough. My father self-taught himself to read and write, and I guess that self-drive to be a better person and determination had also passed down to him from his mother. My mother was also tarred with the same brush. She was an excellent mother, cook, and also never without work. She was an extremely strong-willed woman. Even at the age of 60, she enrolled herself into a course to eventually qualify her as a registered nurse. This inspired me because of her unwillingness to lay down and not give up on living and wanted to help others. Watching my mother aim towards her goals inspired me to be a more determined person. My very first job after leaving high school was working at Townsville City Council as a library assistant. Then after 6 years I wanted to do something bigger. So I packed up from Townsville and moved to the Big Smoke, Sydney. It was here I found my career with Ansett Australia. I worked in reservations, I was a supervisor in retail support and customer service officer at the Sydney airport. Through this experience, I had opportunity to travel to Bali, Hong Kong and the USA. It gave me a broader outlook to other countries, cultures and widened my skill set. I eventually moved to Bega, New South Wales, where I worked for Bega Valley Shire Council for 8 years in customer service and a support specialist in the Planning and Environment Group. It was at this time I felt my calling to come back home. Through a determined outlook, I eventually found my current position at Tableland Regional Council in a role I truly enjoy. I have family here. My father's surviving sisters, Auntie Joyce, Marge and Gladys. My oldest brother Ian has retired from 20 years service in the Australian Army as a sergeant and a communications specialist. My middle brother Warren works for the Northern Territory Government as a structural draftsman working to design roads and infrastructure. I have twin nieces who both have been recently awarded the CSIRO STEM Indigenous Awards in Mathematics Australia-wide. I hope my story today gives the young Indigenous of tomorrow the encouragement not to be afraid of striving to be better. Those of you who now call Tablelands home need to hear these stories. It helps us to understand the past so we can move forward to the future that shaped this country. If you have a dream, don't let anyone or anything deter you from achieving that dream. So in time, that will give you the foundations to tell your story. Success doesn't just find you.